I'm very used to the fact that strangers are going to, in a second, create a narrative for me in their minds. Perhaps this idea that like I'm oppressed or that I don't belong here, that like, you know, their version of empowerment is what will free me.
Hi, it's Karah Price from Belletrist.
And Ebony from Epic Reads, and we're talking with Jasmin Kaur about When You Ask Me Where I'm Going, a beautiful book, a collection of poetry and prose that focuses on immigration, feminism, and reproductive rights.
I've been a longtime fan of Tupac Shakur.
Yes.
Probably longer for me, you know, but whatever.
Maybe.
I think I'm older than you, so maybe.
Yeah. One of the poems in this book is inspired by, you know, the rose that grew from concrete. Can you tell us a little bit about why that poem inspired you and how?
Yeah, so I think I discovered Tupac's book, The Rose That Grew from Concrete, when I was just beginning my poetry journey. So I'd always admired Tupac as like a, you know, a rapper and an MC, but I had not previously read his poetry, so I was super excited to get my hands on that. And I just remember that poem really resonating with what I was seeing happening in my local community at the time. The entire neighborhood is Punjabi. The entire neighborhood is ethnically South Asian, but most of the teachers at our local school were white. So sometimes we would experience some of those like microaggressions from our teachers. I couldn't help but like think about like how those boys were treated in school growing up. You already have these stigmas around like, you know, your ethnicity being associated with your, you know, negative behavior perhaps, and how that would impact your self-image and how you feel about yourself and your worthiness to, you know, learn and to be treated like anyone else. And, you know, whether that could perhaps lead to you like become, you know, a self-fulfilling prophecy almost, where you're like, well, if this is how you see me, like, I guess I should just be what you think I am.
Yeah.
So when I wrote that poem, I was thinking about those boys, especially like in my community, who don't get the benefit of just being a kid, who don't get to just be seen as a complex being because you have all these stigmas already associated with, you know, where you ethnically originate from.
And there's a part in that poem that says, simply call us children so that for once that is what we are allowed to be. And I just thought that was so powerful because kids are taught to grow up, or they are forced to sort of grow up depending on the color of their skin.
Yeah.
And so you really sort of like touch upon like being a brown boy and in my instance being a black boy, you know, like what that does, what our community teaches us, what society teaches us based on that. So I just thought it was like such a powerful part, and it was so amazing to see sort of like how Tupac has inspired like generations, because he, like you said, he was a rapper, but I think everybody was sort of like just shocked when he came out with a collection of poetry. Yeah. It was just like, this is what I needed and didn't even realize, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think we can really talk about race in this country and other countries, you know, without talking about immigration. And in the book, you know, you talk about there's a line that's basically, it won't take long for people to believe this border really exists, even if there isn't a wall to stare at. And, you know, I sort of wanted to get the sense of, like, what you meant by that and in writing that and what you meant to get across.
So that piece was definitely inspired by the rhetoric that is building in the U.S. And even though, like, I am from Canada, like, obviously, like, what's happening here affects us, and it affects the social climate in Canada, where, you know, you see people in Canada with Make America Great Again hats because they buy into that ideology and what that symbolism means for them as well. So when I wrote this piece, I was thinking about the fact that if you can, you know, implant an idea that those people over there, they are automatically the other. We are stigmatizing them. We are, you know, calling them rapists and saying they're bringing crime into our country. You're building a narrative around a people, a brand almost. You're marketing those people in a certain way. Whether the wall exists or not, they are already the other, and they already in your mind should exist on the other side of the wall. And I was thinking about like how, you know, words, how images, how media can affect the very, you know, real lives of human beings. Just recently in California, I believe a 65-year-old Sikh man who ties a turban and, you know, has a long beard was stabbed to death. And we're seeing like so many of these hate crimes that we're almost becoming like desensitized to it. But I can't help but wonder when I see things like this, like what is happening within like our collective consciousness or people's minds, where like someone just looking a certain way is enough to warrant them, you know, being killed. So just like the scariness of what associating, you know, a single image or like a single identity with like one word of violence can do in reality for people.
Well, and also just, you know, when they talk about Donald Trump, like, enlivening his base, things don't have to be put into law or, again, like, erected in order to make their mark or do damage. And I think that's what's so sort of damning about the way in which our current president speaks about things, is like, once it's out there, it doesn't matter if you, again, go ahead and build a wall. It will impact the way that people think about others. And I think that, yeah, it's why language really matters. I mean, especially in this sort of internet age as well. It's not frivolous tweets. It's how he's, you know, communicating with people.
Yeah.
There is I don't know if it was something I read or something I watched on Chimamanda, when she talked about like being in Nigeria and going to like a grocery store and someone is rude to you, like the cashier is rude to you, and you're like, oh, she's just rude. She's having a bad day, or she's just a rude person. But then she said when she came to the United States and dealing with all the things that she started to deal with, you go into a grocery store and a cashier is rude to you and you're like, are they rude to me because I'm black? Are they rude to me because I'm Nigerian? Are they rude to me because I'm an immigrant? And you just start to like process that from an early age when you're seeing these hate crimes, when you're hearing this rhetoric, like what it does to you emotionally and physically. So yeah, you write about topics that are unfortunately so relevant in our world today. So before we go, I wanted to ask why you think it's important to talk about, and in your case, to write about these issues. And as a writer and a poet, what role do you see yourself in having in this sort of larger social conversation?
Yeah. So growing up in, you know, the Vancouver area as a Sikh woman who ties a turban, I'm very used to, like, you know, attention from strangers. You know, people like staring at you as you walk down the street, people kind of following you with their eyes, people literally churning their heads to like watch you and then only looking away when you're out of their, you know, line of vision. But people also glaring at you, and people shouting, you know, racist things like go back to your country on occasion at you. So like I'm very used to the fact that people who see me, strangers, are going to in a second create a narrative for me in their minds. Perhaps this idea that like I'm oppressed or that I don't belong here, that like, you know, their version of empowerment is what will free me. I understand they already have a story in their head of who I am. So for me to write is to say, this is who I am. Here's my story. I'm telling it to you on my terms and not yours. And if you want to find out who I am, you don't have to guess at it. It's right here.
Yeah.
You can read the book and find out.
On that note,
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you for
talking to
coming
us
in. This
about
was
these topics. It's
such a great book. So you have to, if you do not have it, please pick up your copy today. You will not be disappointed.
and go exercise your empathy and read it.
And where can everybody find you online?
So you can find me on Instagram at Jasmin, Jusmun. And I'm also on Twitter, Jusmun Kaur, Kaur.
And make sure to like the video, comment on it. You can follow us online at Epic Reads.
At Belletrist,
And I'm Ebony.
I'm Karah, and thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
for
watching
watching.
Why Not YA.
Bye, guys.